Welcome to Stacking Growth, Call to Action, a show for the trailblazers, changemakers, and paradigm shifters. Each week, a different marketing hero who is called to make a change in their field will join us to talk through each step of their journey. They'll cover the highs, the lows, and what's coming next. Together, we'll help you find the changes needed for your own business to win. I'm Steph Crugnola here with Evan Hughes, and today we are so excited to welcome Canberk Beker, founder of Roasted. Canberk is committed to Refine Lab's vision of building a talent destination by consistently running experiments and sharing weekly insights and analyses on LinkedIn. Canberk, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, it was such a nice intro. Thank you so much for having me.
We're really excited to chat about this. I've been keeping up with the experiments that you've been sharing, and I think it's such an incredible way to push yourself forward and push everyone around you forward too. So, can you tell us a little bit, just going back to the beginning, your path into marketing and the experiences you've had where experimentation may not have been a priority or may have even been discouraged or limited?
Yeah, I think before going into that, I need to go to the beginning and I need to just go through why I think experimentation is such a huge thing and why I had always been really bullish on experimentation. Because, yeah, I wasn't trained as a marketeer, I was a lawyer. And when I actually got my first job, it was a B2C company. But I was actually one of those lucky people with an amazing manager. My first manager was an ex-bank consultant and he was coming from a management consultant background. So, like, he was really big on experimentation. And he was always pushing me to experiment new things. And that company, if I was lucky, I would be given like $500 monthly budget to spend, not even the experimentation budget, it was my entire budget. So like it actually pushed me to try different things. I was just reading through all of the guerrilla marketings that other companies were doing, all of the experimentations that other companies were doing. And I had to build something, like I had to deliver something because I didn't have any budget. Like I had to experiment and find something that might be our golden goose. And then when I actually started working with VC-backed B2B startups, the situation actually was completely different. I assumed that this experimentation mindset would be applicable for every company, regardless of them being B2B, B2C, VC-backed, bootstrap. But apparently it was not the case. Like in those companies, the first idea was that, okay, let's hit our target first, and then we can discuss about experimentation. And especially if you are working in a company where the marketing measurement metric is like cost per lead, you are just given a budget, and that budget is like always just divided by the number of leads required. So like you're like, okay, you have X amount of budget, and your cost per lead target is $200. And that was the struggle I had with my first B2B SaaS experience. Like we were hitting the target, but if I was lucky, I would leave with like maybe 5K monthly budget left, maybe 4K. And then I would try to run experiments with those budgets. But again, nobody would actually care about those experiments because everyone was just really focused on cost per lead. Like that's why I was actually really surprised in my first experience with B2B SaaS because experimentation was definitely not a thing that was encouraged.
It's so true that we've run into situations where we all are in these roles and moments of, okay, what is my actual goal here, right? Like, am I supposed to challenge what we are doing and challenge our experimentation mindset, or am I just supposed to hit that target, to your point? Because we hit the target, then we know next quarter, our goals are going to go up 10%, the budget goes up 10%, it's just a one-to-one, and that's the assumed. Sometimes it doesn't, but like that's the assumed logic there. And I think that that's what stifles a lot of us. So when I started my career, I was in the search side of the business. That's what kind of brought me here. And experimentation wasn't necessarily a thing because the experiment was putting more keywords in and just seeing what the hell happened. And I feel like that's, the world of search prior to a lot of the AI tools and a lot of the machine learning was a bit of a different beast. But I think that mindset of like stepping into B2B, you bring up an interesting point of there isn't that idea of experimentation, or how we define experimentation. It's so different. It's like this idea of I'm an experiment by I'm just going to put this channel live and hope that it does well. It's not like truly I'm an experiment like copy, I'm going to experiment bid settings, I'm going to experiment different strategies or tools. And I would love you to talk me through like that moment, the kind of that aha moment when you stepped into, especially B2B SaaS, so it's relevant there, but where you knew that like experimentation was pivotal for growth and you needed to do it in order to move the needle more than the traditional way. Like, what was that kind of like, holy shit, it's time we do this?
Yeah, I think it was just because of statistical, like I was hitting my targets, then next quarter I would be given new targets. And just like you said, the new target would say cost per lead should be 5% cheaper. Then next quarter it will be 5% cheaper. But when you actually think about the fundamentals of economics, like every day there's more companies bidding on your target audience. Every day channels are getting more expensive. So you cannot just say that, oh, okay, I'm just going to be decreasing my cost per lead every quarter because I'm going to be getting more efficient. No. And at that point, I had to take action, like because if this is my KPI, then I need to find a way to hit this KPI properly. Like when I was talking with the team, when I was talking with other stakeholders, it was so interesting for me, like as if it felt like I was speaking with someone from an underworld because for them experimentation was, oh, okay, let's change the backgrounds from white to black, or like, oh, okay, let's change the creative name, like just change the CTA from See How to Get Now, and uh, that was the breaking point. And at this point, I said, you know what? If I manage this budget, I need to do it on my own terms. Then they said no. Obviously they said no. But what I did was that, okay, what are they going to do? Fire me? And then I just started running experiments by myself. And thankfully, numbers were better. So after numbers were better, I was like, okay, guys, I'm going to tell you something. I had been experimenting with that and it worked. But yeah, like I was not given the green light, like I was not actually given green light. I just said, okay, what are they going to do? Fire me. The good thing about the UK law is that you cannot really be fired easily. So I was like, okay, they can't really fire me. I'm going to do something that I feel right.
This idea of asking for forgiveness versus permission, especially when it comes to experimentation, is key. And I think that people lose sight of what experimentation actually means and how it helps the business, right? So it's informed and data back driven decision making. And I think that that's why it's so important. And to your point of like, I'm running this test with a budget just to see, because then I can put that in front of leadership, hopefully, and say, this is, we're either winning here or we're losing here because of X, Y, and Z. I think there is so much gut and intuition in marketing, and that's important. And that keeps it authentic and feels natural, but you do need some of that data and tangible insights to challenge kind of what you've been doing traditionally. And I would love to know, like, from your perspective, kind of going a bit off the rails here, what makes a good experiment for you?
Amazing question. I think it should start with why, like why I want to do it. Like, because what I see with everyone is that they just want to run an experiment for the sake of running an experiment. But like, why actually do we want to run an experiment? Like, I speak with some agencies, they're like, okay, every performance marketing manager has a KPI, they have to run one experiment every week. But why? Like, then they just
Yeah.
end up running experiments that they have to change the background from, again, white to black, just change one word in the copy. No, like because nobody's asking why. And if an experiment starts with why, then it eventually becomes a good experiment. Because if you ask why I want to do that, then you are going to understand if you actually need to do that or you don't need to do that. Because when you run an experiment, that experiment needs to solve a problem. It needs to help with a pain point. It just cannot happen for the sake of an experiment.
It's true. Do you think that there's a scenario where experimentation actually doesn't yield any results that are favorable to the business, like kind of wasted?
100%. 100%, but still, that's a learning. Then you know that it is not working. And the thing is, like when you run experiments, you cannot just assume that your success rate will be 100%, but that's a good thing. Like probably if you are lucky, 20% of your experiments will turn out to be fine, but that 20% of experiments will improve your results by 80%. Like that's part of the principle. Like I never run my experiments considering that it is going to work. Like it needs to fail. But if I get like 20% success rate out of like 10 experiments, then that's 7, because I know that that 20% will change the trajectory of my business.
Yeah. No, that's so true. It's like a game of inches where it all adds up in the end.
Especially it was this thing with cognitism. Like I had it digital marketing team at Cognitum, and I was trying to push them to run more experiments. And then they would come to me and they were like, it is not successful, and we don't really think we should be talking about it. And I was like, no, like it needs to be unsuccessful. Like if you fail, that's actually a good thing. But if you actually always come up with experiments that bring positive results, it means that you are not actually trying harder, you know, like you are not trying harder. And that's the problem. Like if you're actually getting all of the experiments with good results, something is wrong with you.
Yeah, they're pre-canned experiments that are you're leading the witness in that scenario, I
Yeah.
feel like. Absolutely. Do you, kind of thinking about, so your journey of working in B2C, coming to B2B, recognizing that there was a lack of experimentation or a lack of importance in that. What are some of what's one of your most favorable experiments that you've run in that scenario in the B2B world that maybe most of our listeners are kind of familiar with? And what gave you that idea? What was kind of like, shit, let's try it.
I had a dream. I actually had a dream. I swear I actually had a
I
dream
can't
about
wait
it.
for this.
In the morning, I was like, okay, we got to do that. And it was actually my either first or second month at Cognitum, and we just started bidding on Zoom Info, and it was going well. But I knew that there was so much potential when it comes to Zoom Info because they had more traffic than we had. They had more brand events in the US than we had. And no matter how much money we were spending on brand awareness, that was the fact that we would not be able to reach the Zoom Info's level in the first couple of years. And okay, we were generating good results from those competitive keywords, but I said, okay, what else we can do? Like how we can attack differently. And I was a Zoom Info user before I joined Cognitum, and I knew all of the contract renewal processes, all of the stuff that they do to you if you cancel, if you want to cancel your contract, everything. So I started to bid on very long tail keywords, like trying to cancel Zoom Info. How do I cancel my Zoom Info? Why Zoom Info is charging me extra? And then I created really specific RSAs, like, are you really trying to cancel Zoom Info? Cognitum will help you out. Or like Zoom Info pricing, now you can do better. And the CTR we had was like maybe 2.5%, 3.5%. But with those RSAs, actually CTR jumped to 12%. But obviously CTR doesn't mean anything if they don't convert. But then we created amazing landing pages. Like if you are trying to cancel Zoom Info, but you are not able to, here's how you can do it. And if you try Cognitum, 25 free lists here. Amazing. Amazing. Like we started spending like maybe couple of grand for the first couple of weeks, but the CTR was way better in platform. The conversion rate from MQL to SQL was way better, and they were actually converting really fast because all of those people hated Zoom Info. Like, and we used the hate for Cognitum, and we just said, okay, you might still have the contract. We are going to get you the buy-in, but if you want to try first, here's the 25 free list, and you can just see the platform by yourself.
I love that. We need more magnesium so I can start dreaming up some of these experiments, Steph.
That's wild. I had a dream about something, and I told someone when I woke up, I was like, "Oh, I feel like I should try this," and they laughed at me and said, "That's ridiculous." So now I'm gonna use this as like ammo. Like no, follow your dreams is more than just an empty an empty word, right? So I think what's really fascinating about this so far is the scope of these experiments. So you've talked about, small, like changing one word, changing the color of a background. Like that's not really a meaningful experiment. But I think that thinking of really meaningful experiments is daunting to a lot of folks. Obviously, we're not going to dream up ideal experiments every night. So, what were some of the, or I guess, what are some of the tools that you use to help you keep ideating and coming up with experiment after experiment? What are some tools, whether they're like programs or mentors or anything that helps you keep pushing?
I must sound really boomer, but I don't have any tools. But I do have a spreadsheet that I shared a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn, and probably you can just share under this episode as well. And that spreadsheet, I had been working on that for years. Like I had been trying to perfect that because like I really couldn't find a tool, or I really couldn't find anything that will help me to automate this process. Because again, when we think about it, especially if we are dealing with multiple clients, every client is different. Like every client has different needs. Every client is trying to do something else. But what I try to do is at the end of the month, I look at my numbers with clients. Like, you know, every client has a different number. They have different success metrics. So like, okay, what did I do that month to hit those targets? Did I miss anything? If I missed, why? Or like, what were the reasons that I might have been missing? And one thing I actually had been experimenting for the last couple of weeks, and I actually posted about it literally yesterday, was the video format. Like, I was just
Hmm.
trying to understand how I can make LinkedIn distribute my content more on desktop. Because again, for B2B tasks, we know that desktop is converting, mobile is just for influence. And okay, I'm happy to pay 50% of my budget for mobile. I'm happy to get 50% of my impressions for mobile, but I realized that on LinkedIn is like 5x more mobile than desktop. I'm like, okay, like holy shit, you know. And like, okay, what do I do? And then it was my why question. Okay, why I want to increase desktop traffic? Because I know that desktop brings more conversions. Then how do I do that? What would be my variables? Like the second step is taking a step back. Okay, what my variables will be? I know that on LinkedIn, square images are more mobile friendly. Yes. Then can I assume that a rectangular image would be more desktop friendly? Let me test. No. Then, okay, what else I can try on LinkedIn? I can try videos. Square is mobile friendly, and I know that I will get more impressions on mobile. Check. What if I try rectangular video? Oh, okay, I think I found something. And actually, Matthew from Refine Labs, pointed out something that I didn't really think. That apparently he was testing with the reach objective. For me, I was testing with the view objective, and he actually didn't have the same numbers. And I didn't actually even realize that parameter. But there was any parameter that actually made me get really lucky. Like if maybe I was using the reach objective, I wouldn't have that number. And I got really lucky with that. But it all comes to one thing. Okay, I'm trying to hit the numbers. What activities are bringing those numbers? And what
Hmm.
activities might be working better? What activities might be my current bottleneck? Or like what activities can be improved even further?
It's all about really good tracking and logging and keeping yourself organized. And I think that a lot of times we want tools that will help us, and that's our hope, right? There's something magic that can help keep us keep ideas coming, but in reality, it's just keeping really good track of the things that you're doing. I think that's awesome, and I would love to see that that spreadsheet.
Yeah, I'm glad I have autism. Okay, it just comes from autism. And yeah, actually, this brings me to another problem that I see with people that I work with, other marketers I work with, is consistency. Like,
Mm.
okay,
Yep.
I'm like, okay, this is a spreadsheet that you need to be following. This is what you need to be doing. And like, because I have to coach other people and I just try to help them to, I don't know, get better at marketing. And when I first speak with them, they're like, oh, okay, I completely get it. I'm going to be doing that. And they get it. They do it. Then when I have a check-in with them 2 months ago, I'm like, did you do it? And they're like, what? I'm like, really? Then start over. Like, it's not like uh they don't really understand. It is not like they don't really want to do it, but I don't see a consistency across marketers. And they just set it and forget it. And that's like the one of the things that you shouldn't be doing.
I feel like there's that reminds me so much of early in my career where I would set it and forget it. And I was like, well, hitting my goals, hitting my targets. But I also think like I have to empathize a bit with the marketers today. There's stretched so thin and asked to do so many roles and responsibilities. So to your point about like, it's kind of like accountability in January, right? You're going to go to the gym, you're going to exercise, you're going to eat healthy. And then it's like, all right, 3 weeks in, it's like, what gym? You know, what? So I totally understand that, but I think to your point about like having the right process in place, and it's just like showing up when you're building a brand or awareness and marketing. It's like if you show up, you have to be there consistent and authentic, and having the tools in place that work best for you, I think is so important. So whether that be a spreadsheet or whether you find some sort of tool, that AI program that can help you, like I'm sure there's there, but find what works for you and don't force yourself into something you're not familiar with. Otherwise, you won't do it, to your point. And
Yeah.
then one experiment doesn't tell you anything, right? A series of experiments gives you a lesson. And then once you start it and build an actual foundation and muscle of that, then you have a true marketing organization that's like performing and optimizing the budget to the best of their ability.
100%.
Yeah.
Was there a moment in an experiment that you fucked up? Like you're low that you're comfortable sharing, no pressure, obviously, but like you think about this journey, right? Introducing experimentation. And then was there just a moment of like a low point that you just felt like maybe you screwed up at that time?
Every week.
Yes.
But okay, is it like in terms of setting up the experiment, but in terms of result of the experiment?
I think both. Let's do like in terms of ideating kind of the steps that you took and you thought it was going to be you anticipated really good results and then what happened. But I think both like setting up an experiment and then also the results because it kind of gives two sides of the coin there for people to kind of gravitate towards one or the other.
Yeah, the first one happened once. A miscalculation happened once, and it was actually one of my first experiments in B2B.
Mm.
And I look at the wrong date range. And apparently, if you do 2 months instead of 2 quarters, the results were completely different because actually the company structure has completely been changed. Every target that company was trying to hit completely changed. Uh, and yeah, it took me a couple of weeks to realize that, oh my God, what do I do? I'm glad that nobody actually noticed that. Nobody actually noticed that, but yeah, I tend to look at the wrong date range and everything went completely different. And at first I was like, okay, why? Like it was on LinkedIn. I was like, okay, why do I see this data on demographics report? Why I'm seeing a huge traffic, but they're not converting? And yeah, I think it was because I based all of my assumptions on the wrong time range, which completely changed everything.
Oh,
But in
shoot.
terms of result, literally every week, like because like now I'm working with 10 clients and like I try to run experiment in every 2 week with each of them. So like at least three, four of them don't really work. And again, just like I said, it needs to not work because it means, okay, I'm trying and I'm trying to make it work. However, sometimes I actually am really bullish on one experiment and it doesn't work and it really hurts me, like it genuinely hurts me. And actually, it happened to me literally on Monday. I was testing to now on LinkedIn, you can create a dynamic company's audience and you can be like, okay, if there's a low engagement, and you can also filter by X amount of engagement, X amount of paid impression, you can exclude them. So I created a dynamic company list, and it was like, okay, low engagement in the last 7 days, in the last 14 days, and then paid impressions in the last 7 days, more than 1,000. I said, okay, these are the companies that they are not engaging, so we could just actually save some money and we could start targeting other companies. Terribly wrong. Everything went terribly wrong in terms of data, in terms of website traffic, in terms of uh, like apparently, and that was actually the proof of dark social, because those companies were not engaging. They were not engaging with my content on LinkedIn, but apparently they were visiting by themselves. I was like, okay, dark social, okay. But yeah, like it was an interesting lesson for me.
Like, and it's nice to just own up to all of us to own up to these moments. Like that is not a failure. It's just learning and iterating and pushing yourself forward. So I appreciate the honesty and candor there because I think some of us are afraid to fail or recognize an experiment as a failure is not a growth opportunity. So
And reinforcing the fact that failure is positive, otherwise you're not pushing yourself and your experiments far enough. I think that's a really great reframe for everyone to not hold themselves to an expectation that everything is going to be a massive improvement for your company.
Yeah, 100%. Now I sound like I don't know, life coach, but that's true.
So I guess let's talk about that a little bit. I want to know what your what your work with experimentation has taught you about yourself as a marketer, as a person, as someone who pushes the boundaries.
Very interesting question. Wow. Wow. Yeah, I think it is again trying harder. Uh, and if you try enough, if you try long enough, you will find something that is working. Like not everything will turn out to be amazing, but it's about just finding one thing that is working. And the second thing is that, okay, you can be really bullish on something, you can be really hopeful about something, but life has other plans. And even though, like, I don't know, pride myself of being someone who always relies on data. And sometimes data isn't enough, you know, like even if you see something really good on data, it doesn't really work. And I always thought, okay, if you rely on data, everything would be amazing. And especially when I first got into startups, like I was reading about Bezos and everything, and they were like, okay, rely on data, rely on data. And they give you this fake impression that if you rely on data, everything will be accurate. Okay, data helps you, but sometimes it just doesn't work, you know? Just like you said, even like sometimes it needs to be about gut feeling.
Yeah.
So recognizing that intuition and kind of trusting yourself, I think, is kind of what I hear that you're saying is something that allows you that kind of runway to potentially fail, but also to just keep pushing yourself outside of your boundary. I always like to close this conversation with a question I'm sure every single marketer has been asked 3 times already this year, but I think it's very fascinating, is what shift in marketing do you see as coming or expect that's coming next? And then how should listeners or marketers prepare for it? What are some things that you would encourage them to think about?
I think authenticity. Like now we see everywhere that there's AI generated content, everyone's just maximizing their outcome with AI. And like even if you just go on LinkedIn and see all of those LinkedIn's, or like even if you just go to Google and look at all of the RSAs, they are inauthentic. You know that they're AI generated. And like for the last year, I think everyone has been really focusing on maximizing the quantity. And I think at some point in 2025, it will backfire. And there will be a a big journey back to authenticity. Like, okay, we are going to be focusing less on the quantity, but we are still going to be focusing on quality, just like the good old days. And I think that will be the shift. Like people eventually will understand that, okay, it's not about creating, I don't know, 50 campaigns by AI in one day, but it's about actually creating one campaign that you thought about for the entire month, for the entire quarter, because it will give brands the authenticity. Now, I think brands, especially B2B brands, are shifting away from being authentic.
It's super interesting. I want to have you back in 6 to 12 months and talk about this and see how that shift I mean, way before that, we'll have many of these conversations, but it's fascinating to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Canberk, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey with us. We're super grateful for your time and your insights, and we hope that everyone listening will start pushing boundaries, embracing failure, and trusting your intuition. If you like hearing these journeys, make sure to subscribe and share this episode out to your network. And if you want to nominate a marketing hero to come on and chat with us, feel free to get in touch. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see y'all next time.